books was in. The books are in. Yep. They in. They here.
Okay, peace, everybody. It's your brother Satep and Ra Mariaman. This is the third installment of The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. We will be going over a powerful volume 3. So yeah, I'm gonna pass the mic over to Brother Kofi.
All right. First, I want to say peace and Black African power. Welcome back to Kofi Paisai TV with Kofi Paisai Research Team. First, I want to say ETM Hotep, Dua Aku, Dua Measure, Fatmu Alafiye, Fatmu Riwi, Fatmu Iwa Pele, Majuba Iba Ie Gungun, Majuba Iba Ie Gungun, Majuba Iba Ilagba, Majuba Iba Ilagba, Igungun, Kiki, Igungun. I always have to give honor and praises to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. We are our ancestors. I also want to stand honor and praises to the true and living ancestors out there, elders out there, according to an African perspective and an African worldview. Like he said, this is the third installment, so welcome back. And again, we want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'll pass the mic.
Shay Lafiani, Bawoni, it's your brother Sutek. Appreciate y'all for coming through. As you come in, please make sure to like and share the show. We appreciate it very much, man. Y'all could have been anywhere. We appreciate you, though, for rocking out with us on this Sunday night. Let's get ready to get into this chapter 3 of Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization. This should be interesting.
ETM Hotep, Rennie Sean, welcome in peace. My name is Sean. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to tonight's show. Like the show, share the show, tell a friend. We are back. Support the channel, support the movement. And if you do have Black Civilization and you're following along with us, you know what I'm saying, make sure you're on chapter 3, because that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everybody. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and toss it on over to Kofi, because I know he gonna want to deal with I don't got nothing really to page 99. So I know Kofi gonna probably want to deal with this Council of Elders down here on 96.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me.
Am I right or am I wrong, Kofi?
I want to deal with all of it.
I see that Council of Elders. I'm like, oh, this right up his alley, because he done did a presentation on this type of material.
Okay. Hey, we on Facebook too, Satep?
Nah, you want me to go to Facebook too?
Yeah, do Facebook too, man. Go to the research page.
Okay.
Yeah. You say on page 96? Hold on.
Yeah, 96.
Don't go in just yet.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't even gonna get into the elder part of it all, because
Yeah, that's Kofi right there.
Nah.
Well, go ahead, Sean. Go ahead if you want to deal with it.
I'll go after you. I'm standing on.
He can follow up. It ain't like, because everybody got their own perspective on it. Go ahead, Kofi and Sean follow up.
Okay, but first I want to throw out a question, man, to everybody, man. What I want to say, integrationists or separatists. Which one do y'all prefer? And integration. Is integration a dangerous tool when it comes to our people and to our culture and our tradition and our way of life and our worldview. I just want to throw that out of there, man, because and I'll talk about later on because everybody I know gonna have a different perspective and what they got out of this chapter. And I'm throwing them out. I'm throwing them questions out there because you know, I got something out of this chapter. The whole thing I got out of this chapter, and we'll talk about it because I know me and Satep kind of talked about it a little bit afterwards. But he want me to deal with down here at the bottom. Well, I'll just start right here where it says, hold on, let me see where I started. I'm just gonna start right here, right in the middle where it says this take us back. This take us back to the pre-dynastic period of about 4500 BCE, certainly not the beginning, but quite far enough. Many writers were referred to as kingless periods before centralizing states as a rule of noble archaeologists. What is that? How you say that word, y'all? Oligarchs.
Where you at, Kofi?
Right there in the middle where it says this take us back to the pre-dynastic period on 96.
Okay.
Yeah, it says kingless period before the centralizing states as the rules of nobles, and then it has this whatever that word is. Hang on, whatever that word is, or hierarchies, etc. Okay, whatever he said from the beginning. Therefore, the Western applied Western concepts to quite different African institutions, which they've been doing that, and we've been following in behind them as well. Later, they described the same kind of societies as chiefless or worse, stateless. They did not understand the African constitutional systems of real self-government by the people through the representations of councils and elders, nor did it seem to understand that the chief elders of the chiefs was also the chief priests, or that the other elders also had a religious function in the connection with their respective clans. During this pre-dynastic period, under discussion, they were neither whatever that word nor hierarchy as they terms as understood in the West. In fact, the Western concepts of kingship was foreign in the tradition Africa. What the West called kings was in Africa the same senior elders who had to be elected and presided over the council elders, and then on if he had in honor to belonging to the families whose ancestors had either found the state or had been most outstanding in. But just going back real quick, when we talk about elders, and I wanted to do a cross reference, which I didn't get a chance to do, man. I ended up going up in there and laying down because I know Brother Asar, he talks about the same thing when he talks about the kings. He talks about the king. He talks about the king being an elder. He talks about the king being a priest. Now, when you deal with, a chief as well. Now, we are elder. You know, he talks about all those different things in the Nisabiti book. Now, going back, it says that throughout representation, the councils of elders, nor did it seem to understand that the chief elders and the chief was also chief priest. So the chiefs was what I would want to say, the chief was, I'm trying to figure out how I want to put it. Kind of help me out, Sean. Help me out.
What you trying to say as far as the chieftaincy?
Yeah, for the chiefs. I'm trying to put it in words where people can understand what the roles of what the chief was.
The role of the chief was pretty much like the communicator of the people. I mean, you know, he was basically the voice. The chief was the voice. He conveyed the message.
Right.
He conveyed the message of the council. So it's pretty much it wasn't what he says goes, you know, but
right.
you can seek him for counsel and advice.
Yeah, and it talks about the chief priest. It says the chief elder or the chief was also the chief priest. as we get further along in the chapter, you will see that the chief priests, not at this particular time, how they ended up gaining power into gaining the power when we get into later on, we get into the chapter when we're dealing with when we're dealing with Kemet on how the chiefs did certain things in order to gain power when we get to Akhenaten. And I'll leave it like that. But I'll touch a little bit more on that when we get in there about the chief priests and how did they gain power when Akhenaten began to take rule. But I'll stop right there, man, and let somebody else go.
All right, before you go, Sean, Queen Cheetah, she put in the chat to answer your question, Kofi. Integration, it says integration if we are united, but we are not. So are we not separated already?
Integration if we are united. But if we are not, so we are not separated. We'll deal. I'll talk a little bit more about that. I'll just say this, and we'll move forward. As you study history, as you study history, in which we're going to get into this. It's
all throughout this chapter.
It's all out through this chapter, and just right here where it says, hold on, going back, and I'll stop. It says when we talking about the pre-dynastic period of about 4500 BCE. Remember that timeline, 4500 BCE. Now, and just studying this, and when we're talking about this, and even if we go up to the current status of time right now, or even going back 400 years, or even going back 200 years, or 100 years, or 50 years, integration has never been good for us. But we'll talk more about that. But let's just deal with the time period of 4500 BCE. Let's go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead, Sean.
All right, first to throw out a couple of things I wanted to deal with as far as page 96. I want to go back and reiterate what Kofi just read. Basically, he says this takes us back. Well, first, it says we may now review and sum up this long period, beginning with an outline of some important developments that highlighted factors in the rise and fall of blacks and a further discussion of those factors. Let us therefore begin at the beginning, where some of the misinterpretations were simply due to ignorance. And then it goes on to talk about what Kofi basically said. And it says, this takes us back to the pre-dynastic period of 4500 BC, certainly not the beginning, but quite far enough. Many writers refer to kingless period before centralized states as a rule of nobles, oligarchies, and that just basically means a small group of people having control of a country, organization, or institution. And then it goes on to hierarchies, which you know is a system of organizing in which people or groups are ranked one above the other according to the states of authority. And then he says, etc. from the beginning. Therefore, the Westerners apply Western concepts to quite different African institutions. All right. And then it says later they describe the same kind of societies as chiefless or worse, stateless. They did not understand the African constitution system of real self-government by the people through their representatives of the Council of Elders, nor did they seem to not understand that the chief elder or chief, also the chief priest or other elders, also religious functions in connection with the respective clan. So I'm gonna stop right there because he's talking about a few things. Kofi wanted to bring up a point, but I wanted to kind of share my screen real quick and hit home because I want to drive this point home to make his argument. And I'm gonna be real quick so we can move forward. So when you talk about, let me know if y'all can see my screen.
You good? We can see it.
All right. So basically, the argument here is regarding political structures in Africa. Okay. So
what you got here, man?
Let me just go ahead and give you a piece. So
okay.
This brought me to a research question that I got earlier up here, but I do have some definitions and everything regarding to everything going on. But I want to stick with the main argument here, that Africa has some type of political system. Now, so before I argue my point, I want to make this clear. How could you be responsible for providing the world with certain tools that are in use today and not have some type of agency among your people? Sounds crazy, right? So to run it down, I'm gonna give you 3 sources, and that's it. And then I'm gonna hold all the other stuff that's in here for later. Okay, so source number 1 comes from Yayati out of UNESCO. And he basically is explaining, I'm explaining, and my argument has to deal with the political hierarchy or political agency among Africans. It says a study of the title list of high and low officials and a few legislative and administrative texts that have come down to us gives a more or less accurate notion of government organization. The government on the nomes, the hierarchy of the priesthood, and the distribution of religious obligations on the priest, royal or priestly administration, or the arable land, flocks, mines, granaries, river transport, justice, and so on. Now he's referring to Kemet. At the top of the system sat the vizier, to use it, or the Jedi, or to use a more traditional Egyptological term. The prime minister responsible for the public order was before all else supreme legal authority in the land of, or after the pharaoh, the minister of justice. Nonetheless, the vizier, of whom there were 2 in the new kingdom, was not the king's sole counselor or even necessarily the principal one. Many dignitaries boasted of having been consulted by the sovereign behind closed doors or having been honorary royal son, was answerable directly to Pharaoh, and was almost sovereign in his own territory. Argument number 2. Before the organization of the centralized state system already mentioned, the old patterns of social and political organizations were generally small in scale and rooted in kinship and other ties. A lineage system, which might be patrilineal or matrilineal, enabled kinsmen of one line of descent to maintain solidarity for internal organizations and for dealings with the kinsmen of another lineage. In some places, this lineage principle was extended to embrace a number of local groups conceived and organized as a kindred body. In other places, particularly where the people lived in comparatively large settlements, the concept and practice of kinship reached the level of village organization. Now, this goes to another point, and this refers to something Kofi just said earlier. Some societies do not have kings in the traditional sense, but are governed by the ancestors via the elders. The elders are the representatives of the ancestors, as noted by Ephraim Donkor in 2013. This is the more primitive conceptualization that was transferred and expanded when the village community transferred into nation state. The Kalenjin of East Africa is one such nation. It is worth repeating Sambu, who notes that political power was ultimately in the hands of the frail old men. The older, the more powerful they seem to be. It was this sanction of the Oik, the spirits of the departed ancestors, that was governing through the frail old men. The closest representatives of the ancestors, spirit on earth, were the oldest members of the community, who were in any case closer to them in descent, as well as in that they were soon to meet face to face. Now that's out of a Saw book, so that's a reference right there that goes back to a Saw.
What book?
Nusuk Biti.
Okay.
Yeah. So that go the page right there. Now there's another. I got another quote in here from a Saw right here. It says, "To understand African communities of memory is to understand the role of the ancestors and their visionary leadership. Ancestors are the architects of communities of memory, including living ancestors, i.e. the elders, the king, and the queen mothers. They are the advocates of humanity in the womb of creation." That's out of the same book. So when you go back to, let me stop sharing. When you go back to what he's basically saying in chapter 1, and this makes it a big deal. This is why so much focus should be paid attention on 96. Is he's basically explaining to you who has agency on African conceptions of what and is, a political system, right? Europeans did not understand that. And part of basically what made me go into the notion of this is Europeans never understood certain African terminology or African understanding or African perspective at all. So to ask or to sit there and insinuate that they didn't have agency over their own people politically would be a disgrace. They had a lineage of how they operated, no matter if it's in East, Central, West, South, or even in North Africa. Before the coming of the Arab and or whatever you want to call them people up there, okay? They had agency over their own direction and their own statement. So we got to leave it to those. We got to leave it to what we know about our own selves to draw an honest conclusion and actually proceed otherwise. So yeah, I concluded with that argument to actually help strengthen what the ancestor Chancellor Williams is arguing early on in this particular book. And it's obvious that African societies had their own political systems, and those systems cannot be determined or defined by Eurocentric and Arab perspectives. The African, ancient or present, should never allow colonists to define their worldview. Africans have given too much blood, sweat, and tears, not to mention its scientific genius, to the world to be belittled by oppressors who have intentionally instigated erasing African agency out of world history. That's my piece.
Yeah, and real quick too, and we can move on. From 96. Just dealing with the elders. Every just because you were old, I mean, people all know this by now because we talk about it so much on here. The chiefs, you know, because he talks about the chief councils. He talks about the chief, even the chief priest, which we'll deal with that a little bit later, like I said, when we get into Akhenaten. But everybody can't be a chief or a chief elder. We are an elder in specifically. It's certain criteria that you have to meet in order to be an elder. So in African, from an African worldview or from African traditions and cultures, one must go through many initiations in order to be an elder. And age does not rectify you to be an elder in African tradition. That's all, man.
Okay, that's what's up. I appreciate y'all going in on that. Sutek, you had anything?
Nah, not on 96. Nah.
All right, what about 97, 98? What kind of 98? Because I got something for 99. If y'all ain't got nothing for 98.
Well, I want to talk about something, man. Let's because I want to talk about let's go to page 99 because the question was posed, you know, integrationists or separatists. Is integration good for our people? And just talking, let's just deal with the historicity for a minute. Like I'm saying, let's deal with the time period that we're dealing with, and we can work our way all the way up and see when we dealing with 4500 BCE. So let me see where I want to start at. The outcome.
Yeah, I started in that first paragraph, Kofi.
Okay, well, go ahead, and then we could just break into that because we can kind of answer Sus' question as well with certain things when she posed that question. And like I'm saying, we still see this today when we deal with integration, but let's just see what let's see what the Rimich or the Kemetu was actually doing the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. You know, people believe that the unification, you know, a lot of people skip the part of why Menes was unifying Kemet. They always go to Menhotep during the 11th dynasty, or they go to, or the most famous one that I hear about, or we hear about a lot, is the one in the 17th going into the 18th dynasty when you're dealing with Khotmos, and then in the 17th dynasty they jump it off, and then you get with Khotmos in the 18th dynasty, where you start to keep seeing this unification. Why is they always, when you go through these different breakers of the government breaking down and you know, certain things happen, and then now they got to go back and try to unify each other. And then even with the integration, I definitely don't want to talk, you know, they talk about the people down south. So, you know, they refer to them as, you know, in this book, he referred to them as the Ethiopians and not the people from Tai-Nahesi, when we, you know, are the people that they may refer to as Nubian, which we know Nubian is a misnomer, et cetera, et cetera. But even, you know, we can't glaze over that, how a dispute between the Rimich and them was over this same thing when we talking about integrationists. So, but go ahead, let's I'll dig into what I want to dig to into Yon Satepara, because I know it's gonna fall into what I'm talking about.
Okay, so I'm starting on the first paragraph. It says, Viewing the outcome of the long perspective of history, Menace, the great victor over the Asians, the union of the white and black lands, and subsequent policies of trying to promote brotherhood through integration. And this was, yeah. So, they're trying to promote brotherhood through integration. So it's like, hey, let's be buddy. I know you white, I know I'm black, but let's just unify and be buddy. So let's see what they say. All of this turned out to be not a victory for the blacks, but the beginning of their ultimate downfall and almost permanent degradation as a people. So that's what integration done to us right there. It did not turn out good for the blacks.
And again, this is 4500 BCE,
Yeah. Yeah. It has been pointed out that up to the time of Menace, victory over them, the Asians were rather firmly held behind a borderline along the 29th parallel. Few were allowed in all black regions of Upper Egypt. With unification and situation radically changed, in that the gates to the south were now open to people who already held fourth of the country, the black masses were therefore apprehensive about the new unification policies. So the blacks, they like, whoa, they already own this much of the country. Now y'all about to put these policies in. And the general hospitality to the Asians checked in immediate widespread infiltration southward. Now this is important right here. This what I'm getting ready to read is important. But time was on the side of the whites, whose most commendable attributes and tactful persistence when overt aggressive action is for the moment expedient. This is what we go through today. You know what I'm saying? They do the overt shit. Let's see. In their careful planning for their future generations, with what appears to be more interest in the future welfare of their descendants than they are in the living. This is what we go through today, is because the white man, he thinks of the future and for the future of his descendants. Black people in America today, we only worried about the now. We only worried about, I need this liquor. I need to get my bills paid. I need to get this. We not worried about generational wealth. We worried about what the hell the next day gonna bring, or what we gonna spend the next dollar on. So that's why I said this is important right here, and this ain't even got shit to do with integration right here. This just the situation that we in. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to whites, they plan for their future generations. We do not, and that's something that we need to change. Go ahead, Kofi. That's all I had on that.
Yeah, I mean, you actually went through the whole thing that I was talking about, but let's go back because I want people to understand like what you read. Like he said, the union. It says the view, the outcome from the long perspective of history of Menace's great victory over the Asians, the unions of the whites and the black lands, and the sequences policies of trying to promote brotherhood through integration. And it went on to say all this turned out to not be a victory for the blacks, but the beginning of the ultimate downfall of almost permanent degradation as a people. Now, anybody that know the story that's dealing with Menace, right? We talking about this is pre-dynastic. This is for the dynastic period, right? So if this pre-dynastic, Menace was unifying Egypt. You have Upper and Lower Egypt, Tai-Mahu and Tai-Shamu and Tai-Mahu. You're talking about Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. We know that the Asians, or who they referring to as the whites, the whites, we know they had maybe 40% of Egypt. They did not have the entire Egypt at this particular time. Even when we start talking to them later on, the people already done studied Kemet, know that there was a constant fight in Egypt to unify. So now when you look at what he's talking about, promoting the brotherhood of integration, even when Menace was defeating the Asians was there during pre-dynastic time as well. A lot of people don't talk about this as well, but he was fighting the whites. They was trying to get back the piece of land that they had. Now, even if when you study the story or you read the story from time to time, every time that they unified and defeated and kicked out the Asians or the European or the whites, they kicked them out. They still they dethroned them and took back the land, which was Lower Egypt. They dethroned them, but they was able to roam freely in the community. So they tried to integrate. They tried for one, have unity amongst the two. And like Satep Ra said in the passage that he read, that they will always wait. Because even when Menes unified Norma and they started, and this would happen too, and we still do the same thing. But the Remich begins to set down these policies that he read about. He set these policies down of integrational, right? The union or promoting brotherhood, right? Promoting brotherhood, right? So the people in the South that we know that y'all may refer to as the Ethiopians, or y'all may refer to as the Nubians, or what we refer to as that piece of land as Tai-Nahesi, or Tai-Seti, the land of the bow, right? The people down south did not agree with those policies. They didn't believe in integration with the white people. So this is why, and you don't hear a lot of people talk about this and deal with this as well, that the people in North Africa started fighting the people in South Africa. And it was over the policies. It was over the integration. It was over every time we defeat these people out of portion of this land, y'all let them roam free, and then y'all set up these policies of integrating the two in our society, which begins to cause problems and issue as a people. And then just going back here, if you follow the story too, that when you get to the first dynastic period, all the way up to the fifth dynasty, and you get to the end of the fifth dynasty going to the sixth dynasty, you start to see the government break up. So Satep Ra said that they patiently waited, right? So they patiently waited till we was in dissension, and the government starts to break down, and then they begin to take back over certain parts. But y'all see this all through the story. But go ahead. I just wanted to try to, paint a little context of what you was actually talking about and actually what was happening when you started talking about these policies starting to being set. Why was they setting these policies up? Again, I just wanted to let the people know that even when they dethroned these Asians or these whites, they dethroned them and took back over Lower Egypt, they still let them roam free and wanted to integrate them into their society, which caused degradation to their society and caused a rift between their brethren, which was the people that y'all may refer to as the Nubians, or y'all may refer to as the Ethiopians. And again, we may refer to that piece of land as Tai-Nahesi or Tai-Nahesi. But go ahead, man. That's all I had, because I can talk forever on that.
Okay. Sutek.
Yeah, let me go back to 98 on the blackout in review. I'm on the second paragraph. I'm gonna start at the beginning of the second paragraph. It says, since Asians and some Europeans were heavily concentrated in Lower Egypt, it became relatively easy for them to appropriate exclusively for themselves not only the name Egyptian, but also all achievements by blacks in Upper Egypt and the rest of the Ethiopian Empire. Holding the seacoast and thus blocking African contact with the rest of the world, these white Egyptians were able to perpetrate the myth so successfully that even today, many remarkable achievements by blacks elsewhere over the continent are attributed to Egyptian influence. So that's another point that deal with integration. You see, they come in the north or in Lower Kemet, and they start to take over. It's like you give them some rope. They want to be a cowboy, and we see this we see this on the West Coast too. You can go to the Mali Empire, Mali and Songhai empires, with the situation with Timbuktu, which was a settlement that was given to the Berbers to establish trade with the Berbers and the blacks. And you see where they kind of start to take over, and they you give them a rope, they want to be a cowboy, and you see this on all up and down the West Coast, where the Europeans were allowed to build forts for the other trade, which is the transatlantic slave trade. And you see where they kind of take over that too. Like anytime we see where we integrate in history with these people, it always ends up in some type of downfall or destruction. No pun intended. But yeah, man, I just thought that was powerful. They said they blocked the sea coast and blocked all contact from the rest of the world with them. So you gotta go through Upper Egypt for
Right.
trade.
And that's
You know,
real.
yeah,
Sutek, when they say they cut them from the sea coast, man, you cut somebody from the coast, you cutting their lifeline, man.
exactly, and that's the same thing they did in West Africa. That's why I was just making the transition from uh Northeast Africa to West Africa. We can see the same thing all over the continent. Yeah, man, I just thought that was powerful.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I remember reading that, but I can't believe I didn't write that down.
Yeah, that was one on my that was one on my head too. Cause I got the shit highlighted and underlined everywhere. So I just went back and re-highlighted and underlined some stuff that I directly wanted to, kind of talk about.
Okay, let's see. I had something on page 100.
Hey,
What about you? Go ahead.
at the bottom of 99,
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Go ahead.
Let's do it.
it says the African matrilineal system made the Asian route to the African throne easy when compared with the general patrilineal system of the whites. Said all the Asian kings had to do, whether in Lower Kemet or in the Asian continent, was to promote the marriage of royal males to the oldest sisters of the African kings.
Mm-hmm.
The firstborn male in such a marriage, though Afro-Asian, would be the number one candidate for the throne. Now, you see this all over the continent because this was the blueprint for their power. The blueprint, no matter if it's the slave trade, no matter if it's trying to get in to get the gold or any other resources, they wanted to breed. One way or the other, breeding had to deal with something, because if they had a child, their child was of African descent or born on that continent or in that area, and it had lineage, one day they would be able to control what needed to be controlled for them to see the throne.
But it had to be through the woman, though.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. You want to touch on that?
Sister Ladosha asked, why did they want to integrate them? I'll let y'all handle that.
Trade.
Mm-hmm.
Trade.
And plus, you got to think, Kemet at this time, Egypt is the Mecca. It's the Mecca of the world right now. It's the same reason. It's the same thing how people want to get into the U.S. U.S. is the hub of the world right now. So everybody trying to get in. You make a lot of money here. Moving over here. All right. I'm glad you brought that up, Sean. Go ahead.
Yeah, then we got to remember too, like Kofi just said, they was there since the pre-dynastic period. Like if you study that pre-dynastic period, you're gonna see Asiatics in Kemet already. So they was kind of really already there when the dynastic period started.
Facts. They were, but you don't hear a lot. You don't hear a lot of these pseudo folks talk about that. Go ahead.
I ain't gonna agree with that.
They was there.
Hey, let's be more specific. This is what I agree. Well, I agree with the science. they were limited in their access to Kemet.
Right.
And you see this with their gods. And what we know is the Remech didn't have no problem with people bringing their gods. So if we go back and we look at these pockets, we see them in specific areas along the Nile. They're not all over the Nile. They ain't integrated in other parts of the Nile. They're just in centralized locations, mainly close to where trade can be, where trade routes can come in or come out. They wasn't too far deep into Kemet like that. So that's why.
Yeah. I agree. I agree exactly. Right. I stated that earlier. Right. They wasn't all over. That's what I said earlier. They wasn't all over Kemet. You know, like talking about it. You know, you see them in a Pacific area, like in Lower Egypt. You know what I'm saying? They possess maybe about 40% of Egypt at that particular time. They wasn't all over. They wasn't all over Africa. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I agree. I definitely agree. Yep. Definitely agree. But yeah, but shoot, somebody else wanted to start. You said something about 100 Satep.
Yeah, I can't find where I put it. I can't find where I marked it though. There's something about 700 years of greatness. Let me see.
Well, shoot, I'll just go ahead. I'll start.
Go ahead, yeah.
I'll just start on 100 too. I'll just start somewhere. It says, I'll start where it says, but time seems slower and longer during the first 5 dynasties of each characteristics by great leaders of periods of 700 to 55 years. Now they're talking about we're moving on from Menes, and now we're going into the first 5 the first five dynasties. Now the roll call brings forth names that is still resounded through the corridors time. Menes, Athatis, Parasine, Ka Sekum, Imhotep, Zoja, Zenefer, Khufu, Khafre, Usakaf, or Uskaf, Nefer, and others who established Ethiopian power as the United Empire and is held at a serious challenge for almost 1,000 years. During this period, activities and this is when you start to see, now I'll make this, when you start the kings that I named, now you start to see them start to build and stuff, right? You start to see during this time, it's no more war. So every time that peace was in the land, they began to build. They began to build when the peace. Menes went through with the unification of the land, then set up these policies of integration, right? And then now you have the Asiatic or the Asian or the white man now is patiently waiting. So it's going into my point. What I'm saying, in the 6th dynasty, they began to break down. But the pre-dynastic, then you get up into you start to get into these dynasties, you start to have peace. So they began to build things. So they mention these names like Zojas, Imhotep, Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, which they did mention in here. Where the Neferefer. So all of these, you started going into the pyramid phases, the mastabas to the stealth pyramids, to the flat pyramids, diagonal pyramids, and etc. So now you start going through these great ages, but you got to see where is all of these supplies coming from? Where is the limestone coming from? Now, again, remember I talked about the policies, the integration policies that were set up. They dethroned the whites or the Asians, you know what I'm saying, dethroned them, right? But it was the unification of the people in the South and the people in the North that unified and kicked and dethroned them. But they allow the whites to stay there, you know, integrating and put these policies into place. But the people down south didn't like the integration because they already know where it was going, right? So now you got the pieces upon the building stages is going. During this period, active foreigners traded and expanding contacts with other countries were now possible. Internal stabilized stability was achieved through the process of increasing centralizations of power at Memphis and perfection at the bureaucracies of the vast imperial administration. The state became the chief promoters of inspirers and progress of all fronts: agriculture, industrial development, science, arts, engineer, massive building programs, mining, and shipbuilding. Now, again, Sean said that, it was Sean or Satep, the one said that, okay, Kemet was just like the United States is. They began to have all the wealth, have all these things, these great opportunities, all these buildings of things. It just was a great opportunity.
All that stuff. You go there. I mean, if you need a job,
right?
Like it says right here, you just named off all types of professions, man.
Right. All types of professions that was going on at Kemet at this time. But even going back when I'm talking about the pyramid stage, I'm gonna ask some people in the chat, where was they getting the supplies and the material from during the first 5 dynastic periods? This was a time of peace. Now they went from peace to chaos to peace to chaos, peace to chaos, because Menes wasn't the only king that unified Upper and Lower Kemet, which we'll talk about later on. So where was they getting? I'm asking the people in the chat, where were they getting the supplies from? Where were they getting the supplies for all this great building that was taking place in Africa?
And while we waiting on that, because I know it's a little time, that's what I was wanting to talk about, and you hit it right on the head, Kofi. Whenever the nation is at a state of peace, you always see the advancement of the arts and science, technology, mathematics, and all that stuff. So whenever you're not at war, you're never not trying to unify your country, you know, your civilization seems to advance. History has shown us. I see somebody put trade through trade, Benjamin Njai.
Yeah, peace, brother. Peace, brother Ben. Peace, brother Ben. Peace to everybody in the chat. LaQuisa, King, Cheetah, Omega.
I'm over here eating these.
Back in yeah, but yeah, you see that. Oh, go ahead, Sutet.
I was just gonna say you hit it right on the head, because I was gonna talk about that building. When they start naming all them names, boy, they're some heavy hitters. That's you see the evolution of the pyramids. You know what I'm saying? From the step pyramid with Joseph to the bent and the red pyramid with who was it, Sneferu, and the Khufu. You know what I'm saying? So that's what archaeology up. And then even the genius of Imhotep. You know what I mean? That genius right there. So there's some heavy hitters.
Right. But anyway, they was getting a lot of that material and stuff from the South. A lot of the stuff that Kemet had, they wouldn't have had if it wasn't for the people in the South. It wasn't. If it wasn't for the people in the South. And even they reached back and grabbed their brethren, their kindred, or whatever, because, you know, a lot of people refer to Ta-Nehisi or Ethiopia or Nubia, whatever y'all refer to call it, as the mother of Kemet, right? And anyway, a lot of the limestones and a lot of other different material they was getting from the South. Gold they was getting from the South. That's where the word Nubia comes from the word Nub. That's where people start to call that place in the South Nubia, because the word for gold in the Ramich is Nub. Fact, so-called Nubia helped them out. Yes, and Ben been bagging me up. They helped them out. And they foreseen, this is what I'm talking about. They foreseen, their brothers in the South foreseen that this integrational policy was not going to work. They said that wasn't what it was hitting on. That was not what it was hitting on. And later on, as we get down in the chapter, like I'll see, you will start to see that the people in the North started fighting against the people in the South. And the reason why they was fighting against the South, man, didn't want to go for that. No, man, we ain't trying to hear all that, because we already know what happened. And you see exactly that's what happened. When those policies took place, that was peace for a while. That was a peace for a while. But then when certain things started to happen and the government starts to break down and feuding started to take place and chaos started to take place, that's when they stood right back in there. They scooped right back in there.
All right, so let me go into that, Kofi, because I'm gonna start on I'm gonna go to page 101 at the very top. It says rebellions of various chiefdoms seeking independence from weak and weaker rulers at Memphis also spread. Decentralization became the order of the day for which the Asians had been patiently waiting so long. Under the weak rulers at Memphis and the breaking up of the country into small independent areas, nomarchies, Asian penetration and expansion in the black land became the norm. So when we are decentralized, when we are in a state of chaos, that's what they've been waiting for, and they came right on in. So whenever you see Kemet and it fall, go ahead, Kofi, go ahead.
No, I'm laughing. I don't know, man. I'm just hyped, man, about this chapter, man. But I'm just moving, man.
Yeah, because I mean, he breaks it down so perfect, like with exactly what you were saying, and it segued right into my notes right here. It was like, you know, the Asians, they was waiting for us to. It was like, we just gonna wait them out. And in the chapter that on page 99, I believe it said the Asians. What it said something about the Asians was laying. The time is on the Asian side, so time was on their side from the beginning of the chapter anyway. So they like, we just gonna wait them on out. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no. I'm just agreeing with what you were saying, man. I mean, and that was a fact. I mean, and that's what happened every particular time. Was every time that they unified, which we'll talk about more. We're gonna talk about some more. They still allow that was crazy to me. Once they dethroned the whites from the throne, they still allow them to roam around and still try to practice these integrational policies and keep these people, you know what I'm saying, and keep these people around, keep their influence around, and et cetera, man. But I just agree with what you were saying. Sean, where you want to come from? I know we ain't heard but you from one time.
Yeah, I'm just letting y'all go in, man. As far as, you know, what y'all talking about regarding, you know, how the integration part of Kemet leads to the falling. You know, you got to remember at this time, even though they're constantly in conflict, that's where this that great saying that people always use all the time, and I even heard this from a rapper, come out of a rapper mouth, famous rapper at that, says, "What precedes chaos? What precedes chaos? Y'all ain't
Order.
Order.
Order precedes it.
Order precedes chaos." Now I heard a rapper say this, and I'm like, huh? You don't even know where that's coming from. You know what I'm saying? Let somebody put him up on that. But if order precedes chaos, they were always in a state of chaos, and then therefore you heard Kofi mention it go back to building. So in order to build, you got to be in a state of order. So in orders, you get more done. And when you get these things done, you begin to orchestrate your way through, and you begin to build on the legacies that's left behind the other eras that paved the way and engineered in new technology or new advancements in the fields of science and other areas of study. Mm-hmm. So yeah, okay, I see you, Ben. Yeah, that's a Freemason saying too. Okay. So
let me answer this, Sean, real quick, because Ladosha might not have been here from the very, very beginning. It says, can you give us your thoughts as to why they allowed and supported the integration? And we read that in chapter in the very beginning on page 99, where you know, the King Menace or Narmer did that to unify the land. You know what I'm saying? And now we're talking about how it ended up hurting black people and how it was ultimately the fall of Kemet. So that's where we at now, basically, is in the beginning when he unified the two lands. That's what he's saying in the book. When he unified the two lands, you know, to promote brotherhood, he promoted brotherhood through integration, but it wasn't a victory for the blacks. That's what he's saying. In the beginning, he didn't know that. So that's why. Go ahead, Sean.
All right.
And not everybody supported it either. Let me say that too. And he say that in the book. Not all the blacks supported the integration, but it did happen. So
right, and especially their brothers in the South, they damn sure didn't support it.
they didn't support it. Yeah,
They
not everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, you see the rejection of that all over. But if you just study the history, the only way that they penetrate, to my whole point about the fall of it is that if you're in constant conflict or you're controlling the key piece of land or trade, you're going to see the rest of the world vying for that opportunity to come in and to get you out of there. And so therefore, if you have internal conflict with external conflict, one day your reign will fall. So you have to think that they ran this thing for like thousands of years. We can't even fathom thousands of years. We can barely fathom 100 years. You see what I'm saying? So
we can fathom 400 years though under oppression. We can fathom that.
Right. So imagine them having the grip on everything and controlling all of these things, for a long periods of time and creating, you're creating more enemies because these people are looking or vying to come back and want to avenge the fallen at some point. So you get all of these things going on, but yeah, like Ben said, integration and all of that. So yeah, Norman was looking for a way to integrate because he was trying to, piece out the land, but also control Upper and Lower Kemet in a way that hadn't been done, and then try to solve this trade route because it was going to be plentiful for the Remech in the area to actually do that. But inside of all of that, there was some growing of emotions from these people, if you want to call them white, or if you want to call them Arabs, or if you want to call them whatever you want to call them, Asiatics. You know what I mean?
We gotta think too. This is over. What is it? 2000. At that. So this over 6,000 years ago. We talking about, right? So something like this is possibly could never have been done before. You know what I'm saying? We talk about some groundbreaking things 6,000 years ago. So who knew the outcome would have been that? If that's the case, Norman, if he had foresight on it, probably wouldn't have did it.
Yeah, then you got to think about like trade, how important trade relations was at that time. Like if you didn't have trade, you didn't have a lot of these materials that you're using to, in your everyday life for these building projects and etc. So trade relations were very important back then, and that was Upper Kemet. Lower Kemet was an essential geographical location for trade because you got to the east, you got the Asiatics and everybody up there. You got to the north, to the northwest, you got Europe. You know what I'm saying? So that was basically almost like the center of the ancient world.
And that's what I said, Sutek. That's what I said earlier. It was the center of the world at the time, man. It's not moving around a couple times.
Let me add this to the point. It says, blinded on page 101, he says, blinded by the wealth that was poured into the national treasury, the empire builders was unable to see or understand the requirements of the human heart and the spirit for the formation of attitudes of love and devotion toward a national citizenship. We shall be discussing the traditional African constitution later because every expanding African kingdom and empire already had the guidelines, which the leaders thought applied only to the small states, or they felt themselves to be so rich and powerful that the traditional constitution safeguards could be safely ignored. In the smaller states or tribal societies, the African constitutional system operated to promote and support equal justice, individual and group welfare or social security, and an underlying loyalty to the group. The very scheme of social organization assured all this. Group solidarity became a natural development. An almost fierce spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood prevailed in the tribal states. The work of expanding the spirit as the nation expanded was rarely undertaken. Which I got.
Yeah, man, that's powerful. And like you said, they already had the African constitutional system operated to promote, support, equal justice, individual in the group, welfare, or social security. Like that's important, man. People fighting for that to this day.
Yeah.
Like what was his name, Dante Wilder, to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I just really think that we don't fully appreciate or understand history from the perspective of all these things that we're fighting for at this very moment are things that have already been, fought over. So what are we really trying to accomplish? Was it accomplished then? Could it be accomplished now? And we're talking thousands of years later. Social security, wealth, brotherhood, sisterhood, unification. You know what I'm saying? And then trying to stave off integration. The reason why integration in America is such a trouble for us is the simple fact that we've been oppressed for 400 something years, and we can't fathom anything other than that. We've been forced to integrate because we've been forced to fight our way in or try to be accepted among those who control the wealth of this country, the resources of this country, and the opportunities of this country.
Facts. And it's just crazy to me how we have a lot of people that it is for, my perspective is I'm not for integration, but we have a lot of people that's for integration for whatever particular reason. Some of us just still, we sick, when master's sick, we sick. So I understand that. I understand that mentality, and their standards.
Stockholm syndrome. That's what they call Stockholm syndrome.
Right. And their standards is the way of life. Because what I mean by their standards is the way of life. When we think of excellence, we think of white folks. So we try to be like white folks. When we on the phone talking to our friends, y'all be doing it now. Hello. Oh yes, this is such and such. We want to talk with proper English because we think that is the standard of talking Queen English when we're talking. That makes us sound smarter, make us sound sophisticated. Wearing suits, wearing suits, is their standard. So we think if you dress in these suits, you are being professional because this is the standard. Wearing your hair a certain type of way, walking a certain type of way, we think this is the standard. So a lot of us is for integration is because we want to be just like the white people. We hate the conditions that we are in, but we love the people that put us in this condition. So we try to act, and imitate. And that's just being real. You know what I'm saying? So we love massa. We love them to death. Well, integration is, some people think integration is the best thing smoking. Kofi Paisa has a white voice.
Real quick, let me touch on this real quick. Sister, let me go backwards. I'll go to Sister Ladosha, then Brother Vince. She asked, should we repatriate? Repatriation has always been something that Pan-Africans wanted. Now, those of us who choose to repatriate, we should be in full support of that. But in order to repatriate, you have to have a plan. That plan has to be orchestrated, and the orchestration of that plan has to be with involving our brothers and sisters on the continent and what type of relationships that we can build with them in order to see that our repatriation is a success. And then it's each one teach one at that point. As far as Brother Vince, integration was a killer of Black business success in this country. Absolutely. We saw that with the fall of a lot of great Black businesses because Black business owners wanted to then, include other people inside of their business ventures or move their businesses away from the neighborhoods that they were in, and then, make other people a part of, those things that we had to deal with as far as our resources, grocery stores, pharmacies, barbershops. I recall a time where barbershops had the shoe shiners in the barbershops. You go in today's barbershops, you have to go back and you have to go into a more so someone of the age in the late 40s, 50s that has a barbershop that still keep the shoe shiner guy around. You have to, and
let me ask you this. is shoe shining a respectable profession nowadays? You know what I'm saying? That's because you remember the movie, what was the one movie, Casino, with Joe Pesci? He said, "Go get your shoe shining kid." And this in the 80s. This in the 80s.
Yeah. So, respectively, you're gonna laugh at me when I say this, but those who appreciate the business and still support those who actually do it will argue yes. But today's youth and those who are around our age, they don't get this shoe shine. Maybe some people may still get this shoe shine, but it's a lost art. Some people did respect the shoe shiner because not only did he shine your shoes, he gave you game. You know what I mean? It was just an extension of your barber. Like for men, our barbers are like psychologists. Like we go and we can talk to our barber about everything, our relationships, our struggles, recent incidents, stuff we haven't been able to resolve, and we get those answers. The shoe shiner was that same guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't as equally busy as the barber, but you had to come through and you would get acclimated to him because you're going to sit next to the barber. And from those relationships with your barber, you build in with the shoe shine guy, and then you learn you learn more about him and more about the streets because he done been in the streets and he done turned a corner. So now he doing these shoes and he got all these people shoes that come up there and they getting dropped off, and you look back in, he got 50 pair of shoes back at him, he done knocked out. He got them sitting there looking fresh as I don't know what. And then you know what I'm saying? He teaching you about politics and just grind, man. And I think that, to me, in a sense, because, where I go get my hair cut, man, it's a guy in there that actually still do that. And he got appointments. And you know what I'm saying? And them people come in droves. And, it's out of respect, not only just preachers, people like that in the community who wear dress shoes the most. He even got white people coming in there dropping off their shoes to him, man. So, anything to support black business.
Yeah, I just wanted to segue over that because that's something I was just thinking about. I was like, man, that's a profession that's like you said, it's a lost art, man. And yeah, but yeah, we can get back to the book though. I know.
Yeah. But let me speak on the repatriation real quick, just for people, get some clarity for people like for repatriation. I'm definitely one for repatriating back to Africa. But I'm not as naive as I used to be. So my three main places I would like to go, but I'm not sure. Two in particular I would like to repatriate to is Ghana or to Nigeria. And no specific reason is my mother's people migrated from Uganda into Ghana. And my father's people doing the great Bantu migrations, they migrated from Kenya into Nigeria. So that is where my ancestry descends from Nigeria on my father's side and Ghana on my on my mother's side. But I'm not gonna, I ain't even Gambia because of the relationships that I have with people down there in Gambia now. But even with trying to repatriate, I tell if the first thing you should do is try to travel to these countries first before you even go. I wouldn't just up and jump and repatriate to a country. Oh, I'm gonna pick a country. Go to that country first and see, will it be a fit for you? Will you be able to adjust to this particular country that you're going to? Go in and study the different economic systems, because I hear Ghana is high. I hear Ghana is, and Brother Vince, you in here, Brother Vince, if I'm wrong, tell me, but I heard that the cost of living in Ghana is high. Like you have certain places that are not high. I think Nigeria is another place that with the cost of living may be high. I heard Kenya may be a good place to go. I heard Tanzania may be another place to go. So I'm saying before you repatriate to anywhere, go to these places that you thinking you may want to repatriate from, and go there and see if you want to be there and study there before you even try to repatriate and just up and jump and then and leaving. Ghana is very supportive. Yes, and Ghana is very important in repatriation. I know at one time, you had the king. It was, and I don't know if they still doing it. I know a few years ago, he was saying they was apologizing for the role in the Atlantic slave trade or the Atlantic kidnapping trade, and they was offering people from America to come back. And they was offering free land at one time. I don't know if the offer is still on the.
I looked into that, Kofi. That wasn't actually that's actually not true.
That's not okay. See, I
looked into that because I was looking into that stuff a couple months back, and no, that wasn't what they were saying. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't giving away no land at all. What they was gonna do was they was gonna offer it for you to purchase from families there at a low rate. Yeah, at a low rate.
Oh yeah, being saying it's not free.
Because people own that land. Like they don't got land over there just to be given away. Everybody got parcels and everybody owned land over there. So yeah, they was going and then they was going. When you came over there, you had to come over there with You had to come over there offering something, like you had to come over there with some type of business plan or something like that. Like you can't just come over there and they just give you land and they give you this, they give you that. No, it was a partnership. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's just a misconception. That's all.
Yeah. What he said, Obesky is offering land right now. They were in Cleveland. Let's pin Vincent comment up there. Okay. He said Obesky is offering land right now. They were in Cleveland back in February. Obesky is the area. I'll have to check that out. And that's in Brother Vince. That's in where that's at. That's in Ghana as well. Because I'm not familiar with them.
Yeah. So like Behu did said, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. They looking for people that bring opportunity and grow the economy. Thank you, brother. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they're not giving away nothing. Go ahead.
Yeah, Sean, you had something?
Yeah, when he was talking about Obesky. He's talking about, you know what I mean, the chief Nana Obesky in Ghana. So yeah, they still doing land grabs. I want to bring it back to the book a little bit because we did go.
Right, let's get back.
Yeah, we did go further. I don't know if anybody had anything on 101, but I wanted to go to 102 real quick to kind of, to kind of get into this. I want to get into the second paragraph just a little bit, if I may. It says we should pause at the beginning of the Middle Kingdom, 2133 BC. Because during the long 1500 years covered by my brief summary, one of the most unusual social political phenomena occurred. It has been referred to numerous times before in terms of its development, but now the unexpected had happened. At this point, we have passed 15 centuries of African-Asian amalgamation, at first larger in Lower Kemet, but afterward more and more in Black Upper Kemet. The Afro-Asian offspring were called the new breed. I want y'all to think that he's quoting right here. He's saying the new breed. And this is a highlight of much of the conversation. The distinguishing characteristics of which were the devotion to Asians and hatred of Africans. Unless this point is grasped, we may as well drop the study of African history insofar as understanding fully the internal troubles of this race. Now I want to reiterate.
Yeah, go back over that because he just said some heat right there, and that's gonna lead into something. So go ahead.
He says we are at the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. This is important. The Middle Kingdom, 2133 BC, because during the long 1500 years covered by my brief summary, one of the most unusual social political phenomena occurred. It has been referred to numerous times before in terms of its development. But now the unexpected had happened. At this point, we have passed 15 centuries of African-Asian amalgamation, at first largely in Lower Kemet, but afterward more and more in Black Upper Kemet. The Afro-Asian offspring were called the new breed, the distinguishing characteristics of which were devotions to Asians and hatred of Africans. Unless this point is grasped, we may as well drop the study of African history insofar as understanding fully the internal troubles of this race.
So
There's
this
with this-
race is specifically the new breed, and
Yes.
it took, and he been, to sum it up, 15 years, or what is that, 1500?
Yeah, 1,500 years.
1,500 years of amalgamation of breeding, you know, and this is the offspring of you know, what's done came of that. And these was what we would call over here the mulattoes.
Mm-hmm.
These would be the mulattoes over here right now, people that's mixed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just putting that in perspective. I'm not saying they the same. I'm just saying that to put it in perspective, that would be.
Yeah, they would, right? You saying it will be considered the mulattoes. They are mixed because even when you go back to the page and you start to see what we've been talking about.
Coffee, you said what?
I said they will be considered mulattoes. Yes, they will be considered mulattoes. They will consider to be
That's
mixed.
the new breed. That's the new
Right.
breed. You know what I'm saying? You got Africans, and you got Europeans.
And then now you got the new breed.
Yeah.
Right. And in between them two, you would have, just like if you look through history, you know, they were both playing the fence. You know, most of them, you know, leaning toward, you know, like especially if you look at maybe in the last 400 years or the last 100 or so years, you will see the role that some of the mulattoes, some of them played, you know, a great role. Some of them played a lot of bad role because they tend to lead toward their fathers. And even when you're looking at here, you had the Asians. The Asian men would you know, copulate with the Egyptians, with the Egyptian woman. So the new breeds will come out of the Egyptian woman womb. But they will both play both sides, but then they end up becoming their own people because they was bred. You have to look at what he read right here. He said that what he said about the hatred.
Yeah, down here at the bottom it says the distinguishing characteristics of which were devotions to Asians and hatred of Africans.
Africans, right?
That's just like today. You got the light-skinned brother with the curly hair, and they hatred for the dark-skinned brother with the nappy hair, quote unquote. I'm gonna say that, but like it's the same thing that's happening today, man.
Right, and you see that, and they was taught that by their fathers, and then you will have on their mother sides. Even you had where the Africans or the people in Egypt didn't like the mulattoes because a lot of them tend to grasp toward their father's side, but then you even have the Asians or the whites that didn't even like the new breed at all because of the hatred for the Africans, even though they breeded with them for, you know, for political reasons, status and so forth. But, you know, these people became their own group of people because then you start to see the distinction. Now you start to see, you know, like you said, the Egyptians, the Asians, and then this new breed. But then he goes on farther to say, when we get over here to 103, he says the blacks had come to hate them as much as they hated the blacks. So the blacks began to hate the mulattoes as much as the mulattoes hated the blacks. Third of his situation developed the passionate and deviant nationalism that restricted the term Egyptian to mulatto alone. Henceforth, neither Asians or Africans were to be called Egyptians. Indeed, the new breed began to treat Asians as strangers and no longer welcome them in a mass events of Lower Egypt. So now the new breeds are getting shunned by the Africans, and now they're getting shunned by the Asians. You see what I'm saying? Right, you know, right there. So they became their own group of people. Then he says the Afro-Asians had apparently resolved that since they could not belong to either the black or the white race, they would be a race by themselves. Like I said, they will become a people by themselves because they began to get shown by the Africans because they was bred by their fathers to hate the Africans. So you see.
Now, hold on, finish it, Kofi. Finish it.
Okay.
Because finish the sentence.
Okay, shoot.
Said race themselves, and what races did he say?
Would be themselves, would be a race by themselves, and in their own right, the Egyptian race.
There you go.
Right, that's what I'm saying. They started to be extinguished. The Africans began to start to be called a certain things. The Asians began to call a certain things, and then the new breeds will begin to be called the Egyptians.
And hold on, Kofi. I don't want to move past that point because it's a reason why they are called the Egyptians, because this breed was created in Egypt between the amalgamation of the two people from the very beginning. So they don't come from that's the amount. That's the same thing with the mulattoes over here today. It's like, you know, you call them a what's the word short we call mulatto? Call them a mutt. You know what I'm saying? What's a mutt? It's a mixture of a different types of species of dogs. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's the same thing, man. It's just crazy how
Y'all gonna get it reported by old boy, man. You know, you get mad about that word,
man. I'm just saying, man. It's crazy. But go ahead, though, Kofi.
Oh yeah, let's stop, man. We definitely.
So now we know they are the Egyptians. So we got three races of people he talking about here.
Yep. It worked. It worked. It Asians, if unmixed, were now called Asians, and Africans, if unmixed, were called Africans or Ethiopians. They alone, the new breed, would be called Egyptians, and the writers of the world would follow this classification from Homer time to this day. I shall use the term in the same way in all sequences references. In the early period, Egyptians would have meant the blacks. Later on, it would have meant blacks or Afro-Asians. The white Asians were never called Egyptians, even when they ruled all Egypt. Even the present-day rulers of the land are unhappy with the term and much prefer to be called what they are, Arabs. We know the Arabs are over there today. Hence the change of the official name to the country from Egypt to the United Arab Republic. So it's no longer called Egypt. It is the United Arab Republic. So
yeah, that's powerful. Like this page 103 just tells you everything you need to know about what really happened over there. And like I said, he distinguished the three races of people, and he tell you how it starts. So it's just like, man, I don't know. And then what was pivotal is the part that you just read. The end part is where the Arabs, they want to be recognized. Like, no, we not Egyptians. We not white. We not black. We are the Arabs, so we're going to call the country the United Arab Republic. So, yeah, go ahead. Anybody got anything on that?
Yeah, I think this is where people get all the confusion of what the image looked like ideally. So to distinguish themselves, when they started to separate the people that were there before any so-called Egyptian or any so-called Asiatic, the Africans would take on another identity. That is to simply to also press the issue with not only Homer, but with pseudoscientific ideology would then put forth and say that there were not Africans in Kemet. You know what I mean? But ideally speaking, they who we would call or what we look at as our Africans, you know, that look like people that look like us, or a little, no matter the skin tone, whether a little light brown, dark skin, and so forth. Well, over in that land, you know, they didn't start to take shape until, like you said, later on. So then you would start seeing complexity changes, and you would start see them light up over, you know, years and hundreds of years and years and years, all the way down until you get other people trying to come, which is those white people or the Europeans to come down in there, or the Greco-Romans come down in the area and start trying to rule over Kemet in the AD era. So I just think that it's interesting to look at how the shades change and the political environment changes, and not only just that, but the way race begins to be shaped in, you know, in a in a late, no, I don't want to call it late, but just in that period. Think about that period that he's referring to. You know, the Middle Kingdom. And people are starting to get an idea on how to separate who's who in this area. No matter how long those so-called blacks been in this area or those Africans been in this area, they have now been distinguished as something that is not even idealistically of that. And this is the religious thought also that I believe begins to be infused around this time, because you see a changing of the guard and more acceptance of like the Hyksos gods, and then the little certain pockets in the Middle Kingdom where we see the Hyksos coming in and sitting in certain areas. But you know, this trade route stuff come about, and that Levant area becomes a big deal, and this monotheistic perspective of a Neteru, well, not really a Neteru, because they didn't have no dang god one, but you know, other people's idea of a one god method seems to start coming into play, and then we start seeing Akhenaten in that later period establish that one god ruled himself.
Yep.
Okay.
I wanna
Hold on, Sutek, you got something?
yeah,
You're supposed to roll your R's when you say Neteru.
you right.
Okay.
Neteru.
Inside.
All right, y'all. It's a family-friendly show.
We've been family friendly, man. Hey, but if you ain't got nothing, Sutek, the last paragraph on 103 is also an interesting point.
Go ahead.
It says in the 11th dynasty was started with the stronger black rulers. I'm gonna repeat that again. In the 11th dynasty was started with stronger black rulers, beginning with Mentuhotep and followed by 3 kings of the same name. Their rule was again limited to Upper Kemet, since the Asians had reestablished the rule in Lower Kemet during the period of nationwide turmoil and rebellions. Mentuhotep II, after restoring order in Upper Kemet and promoting a rapid economic program, had turned north to repeat Menes' great fear of conquering Lower Kemet again. So I think that's a vital point in history, and you know, when you start to look at those things regarding Kemet, and you take on those ideas of, you know, reshaping history. All right, it's Mentuhotep II time. He like, man, listen, we got to get these boys up out of here. We done made this error too many times, and we keep on making this mistake. We didn't let them. We didn't did business with them politically. You know, we didn't let these people come live with us. They didn't change the cultural identity of our people. You know what I'm saying? Because remember what he's clearly distinguishing who we call the Africans from the Egyptians. And the Asiatics now have taken reign back in Lower Kemet. So now it's that let's go, let's get them out of there, and let's just deal with what we got to deal with and handle our business like men. And I think that segues into, you know,
yes, sir, what I've been talking about with the brothers from down south. They ain't rocking with it because they end up doing the same damn thing. The same thing. Menhotep did the same thing that Menes did. Still allowed them people, once you dethrone them, to live amongst them. Get them the hell out of there all the way. Kick their asses out of there. Excuse my French, man. Get them up out of there. You know, but you see the same thing. But can I start on 104?
Be my guest.
And it says, but the Ethiopians below the first cataract did not return to reunite empirically fold in the north. As we have seen, the southern kingdom did not attend the return. Now, I told you that, you know, they unified with Menes to kick the Asiatics out during the pre-dynastic period. And then when Menes set up the integrational policies, you had people there that wasn't rocking with it. And then you damn sure had the brothers from down south was like, nah, we're not rocking with this integrational policy, right? So now when Menhotep during the Middle Kingdom come back, and does the same thing to unify Kemet, the brothers from down south didn't come back to help. They're like, nah, we not rocking with it. So as we seen, the Southern Kingdom did not intend to return. Their defection had been going on right after another along before the general disorganization and the rebellion during the 6th and 7th dynasty. Hostility to the Asians' invasion was always greatest in the southern regions. Many of the people claimed that the Asians held areas in their ancestral home. They wanted Lower Egypt conquered and the Asians driven out. Menes had achieved a great victory, but the integrational policies that followed were regarded as a betrayal to the blacks. I'm going to read that again. But the integrational policies that followed were regarded as a betrayal to the blacks. They had lost faith in the black kings ruling from Memphis, who were not only favored integration, but promoted it. The steady movement of the whites from the Delta into the Upper Egypt itself was proof enough for Southern blacks that the Asians' aim was nothing less than the ultimate control of all Ethiopia. So right there, you start to see, like I'm saying, we've been talking all day that the brothers down south and even some of the people that was there in Egypt did not rock with these policies and understood that it will be a downfall to their people to integrate with these people that they just dethroned from out of Lower Egypt. So now the second time of unification, the brothers down south, whether y'all call it Ethiopia, Nubia, Tai-Seti, or Tai-Nahesi, they weren't trying to come back, and follow suit and help them out and kicking them out. Now you see that it says not only favored integration, this is the main two places was Het-Ka-Ptah, which is what they call Memphis, and you had Thebes. I think Thebes is what's said if I'm not correct.
Right.
What's said, right? So they favored these two particular places. You could say these two capitals of the empire, a capital of the was they favored the integration. They promoted it, and the people down south understood that okay, now that if we keep it up, the people, these Asians or these whites or these Arabs or whatever we describing these people are they're gonna break from Lower Egypt, and we keep kicking them out, and then we're gonna start to see them in Upper Egypt. Then you're gonna start to see them break the first cataract, the second cataract, they're gonna start to break, and they're gonna take over the Egypt, and then they're gonna try to take over Ethiopia, Nubia, Tai-Nahesi, or Tai-Nahesi, whatever you may call it, in that area. So that was one of the reasons that they say they had already seen that all of this stuff was going to take place, and they wasn't having it. They wasn't having them people coming in that area down south. So that was one of the reasons why the people in the south did not agree with what the people in Egypt was doing when they was doing these integration policies, because they already seen what was going to happen. If you continue to let these people reside with us, they're going to begin to cause problems. They're going to break down our government. They're going to cause dissensions between each other. They're going to influence us, and make us break away from some of our customs and our traditions. They're going to make us look at things a different way than we look at, then we look at different things. They're going to make us look at each other differently than what we look at. And each opportunity, each chance that they got, they did exactly what the brothers in the South said. They was going to come in and try to wreak havoc and take over the land. And they did this continuous through out Egypt when you study the different kings that went back and tried to unify Upper and Lower Egypt. And also the presence of the influence of Upper Egypt withdrew from the Southern Kingdom appears to keep peace. And this is why you start to see also that the brothers in the South and the brothers in the North, their own brothers were going against each other, because they did not agree on the integration of policies. The same thing that you see when you look at in the 50s and the 60s, you start to see the integrationists and you start to see the separatists. You start to see the civil rights movement, with Malcolm X, Jesse Jackson and the other ones. And then you start to see the separatists when you deal with the Nation of Islam. You start to deal with Pan-Africanism and so forth. These are the people that wanted to separate, you know what I'm saying, away from us. So you see the very same thing. The people in the South was separatists, and the people in the North was integrationists. But I'll stop right there and let somebody go ahead.
No, I mean, shit, you was killing it, Kofi. I know. I know on chapter or on this one on 104. Let's see. Let's see. But why were the blacks furthest away from the Asian threat so much more concerned, or appeared to be, than those who still lived next door to the enemy in Upper Egypt? Even the larger number of refugees from Lower Egypt must have settled in Upper Egypt because the biggest concentration of blacks was there. This would have been the situation around 2400 BC. The answer may be that since Naphtha was regarded as unchanging capital and center of black world, and now Thebes of glorious memory and threat of this sacred land of the gods was the threat of the survival of its race itself. So in this little paragraph right here, it's basically saying that over there in Naphtha, where we talk about Naphtha Playa, that's the heart of the land. That's the heartland, basically. Like that's basically the heartland. And if they get that, it's over. If
exactly.
they're able to get the heartland, it's over, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Napata.
Yeah, Napata.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hey, I wanna. Well, I'm gonna wait to see if y'all got anything else, but I want to kind of get into 105 real quick. To just follow up with what y'all saying as far as the land and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
it says, second paragraph. It says specifically, Black Upper Egypt, being in the middle, was forced by circumstances to play the leading role in the wars for unification in both directions. And considering the many centuries over which they were intermediately waged, they seem destined to go on forever. It is noteworthy that all these long drawn out efforts at unification of an empire under centralized government were confined to the directly indispensable economic regions, which were contagious to each other. I want y'all to think about that for a minute. When you look at the world war, whether it's one or whether it's two, who do you see frontline in the wars? You don't see you see African frontline the war. So it brings me to the point that when you're specifically directing this war of unification between Upper and Lower Kemet, the blacks will be in between. So you have outsiders coming in from the north, and then on the lower end you got the Asiatics down there trying to get these other Asiatics to combine and take over the whole Kemet because they want to rule.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean, that's the particular situation that Mentuhotep II was in, because he's in the middle. You know, Thebes is in the middle. They didn't have Nubia, and he didn't have Heracleopolis or whatever. That's what because you know the start of that dynasty was from Intef. You know, his great grandfather, and then it comes down to his father, which the war passed down to his brother Kamos. In not yeah, I'm talking about another dynasty.
Yeah, you talking about the 17th dynasty.
Yeah, there's so many unifications.
Yeah.
But no, let me go back to the Intefs because you know that's the Thabag dynasty right there. So you know they're right in the middle, and this specific stuff that we talking about, what Mentuhotep had to go through, you know. And his family was fighting the Asians throughout that whole dynasty until he got it, and he reigned for about, I think he ushered it in for about 60 years, I believe they said. But yeah, That was the middle of Egypt at the point, man.
Mm-hmm. So I just think that when you start talking about Black Africa, and when you're talking about the unification of two lands, our people have always fought the struggle to do something to help unify a people who really didn't want to really deal with us on that level. And I think that, you know, that shows our weakness as African people. We have this heart, this real big heart to allow people to, you know what I mean, come in, seek shelter. Remember, ETM Hotel, the gesture of Hotel, plague the Nile. That gesture, like most people don't understand what I'm talking about when I say the gesture of Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just think it means just peace, or some people think it may mean some derogatory name, but it was a gesture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
an offering.
An offering, correct.
Mm-hmm.
So in that gesture and that offering, you know, it kind of backfired on us, and it just put us in a position to where not only are we just trying to fight to get back and stuff, but you know, we having to do all the elbow rubbing to make things right when we shouldn't have to do all of that. But we did it. And then once again, you know, we make the largest sacrifice as a people. But that's pretty much, I wanted to get into that because, you know, with the fall comes someone's sacrifice, and we were the sacrifice in our own demise.
Yep. Every time. Yep. Shoot, where y'all want to start at now? Satep and Ra?
Shit, go ahead, man. I ain't got nothing to like page 113, so y'all can go ahead and rock on out.
Well, shoot, I don't really got too much neither. We can go to 130. Hold on, let's see. Well, I'll start right here because I'll start on 106 because we mentioned the 7th dynasty because we're talking about, you know, we're talking about each time that these people, these Asiatics or these Europeans or Arabs or whatever these Asians were that was in the area, in the interior, you know, sat back, waited, and took over a piece of the land until they worked their way and made it up into Upper Egypt. But we know that they resided most and conquered Lower Egypt. Now, and we talk about the unification. So you mentioned Kapmos. So let's talk about Kapmos. So because now when you go from 1st to the 5th dynasty, you know, it's peace, and we build, and you start to see the pyramid stages, like as we talked earlier. Then you start to see the government and dissension and chaos starts to take place around the 6th dynasty, and you see that the Asians or the white man or whoever they were move in position and take back over a piece of Egypt. And then, you know, you see Mentuhotep during the 11th dynasty in the Middle Kingdom take back and unify, but this time he doesn't have the help of the brothers in the South because they don't want to follow this integrational policy, right? So you mentioned Kapmos in the 7th dynasty. So let's go to the 3rd period of the great rulers, because when we talk about the greatness of Africa, when we talk about the greatness of Egypt, we're talking about the 1st through the 5th dynasty, and then we'll talk about from the 11th dynasty, from the 1st to the 5th, and then we'll probably talk about from the 11th till maybe, I can't think of when the 2nd intermediate period took place. The 11th, might have been the 15th.
Yeah, I was gonna say 13th.
It might have been the 13th. And then you start to see the great period take place again when you get to the 17th, well, let's say the 18th dynasty, because Kapmos actually jumps it off in the 17th dynasty. So you mentioned him. So it says, but the time was still far away when Kapmos, at the last Theban king of the 17th dynasty, 1645 to 1567 BCE, opened a full-scale war of liberation against, he's saying, the Hebrews. And we know that this book was written and was published. Let me go back to the published date on here too, because we have to take a lot of that in consideration too. Well, there is so many different publics, because mine said 1987, and I know this might not have been the first publication because there's a few different publications when this book was put out, but we have to understand the book was written a long time ago. So he's saying the Hebrews, and we know that there's a lot of people in the community, conscious community, that use this rhetoric that the Hyksos, they were the Hebrews, but we know that's not the case. But he's saying the liberation against the Hebrews and the greatest of the dynasty since the fourth had now arrived. This was a remarkable 18th dynasty with the lineage of the kings and queens who became immortal. So a lot of y'all know about Ahmose the First, which is Khotmo's brother. Again, Khotmos jumped it off in the 17th dynasty, and then
they dad actually jumped.
Well, yeah, right. Their dad actually jumped it off. Khotmos took it on, and then his brother took it on in the 18th dynasty and kicked their butts right back out of there and unified Kemet again.
I did, and just so y'all know, I did a presentation on the warrior kings of Kemet. Most of that presentation is about these kings coming and fighting the Asiatics. So if y'all want to watch that video, y'all can. It's on Kofi Paisai Research. It's called Warrior Kings of Kemet. Go ahead, Kofi.
Yeah. So you got Ahmose the First, Nefertiti, which was his wife. You got Amenhotep the Second, Thutmose the First, Thutmose the Second, and even just going back when we talking about, again, this book was written long time ago. And, like I said, that's why I said that, because of the word Hebrew. But even just to touch on the word Thutmose the First, Thutmose the Second, a lot of people run around. I don't know if they still do run around at one time with the pseudo rhetoric that Thutmose was Moses. That's crazy. But anyway, Queen Hatshepsut the Great.
Akhenaten is Moses. All of them is Moses.
Yeah, right. Akhenaten was Moses. Yeah, you're right. That was one of the claims too. I got a pseudo book, man, that talks about Akhenaten being Moses, but this was in my beginning of coming into the conscious community in 2013. So, but anyway, I'm Amenhotep the Third. Akhenaten the Reformer, and Tutankhamun was called the New Empire, and so was the fact. The Hyksos rules was broken and they were expelled. This, however, could only apply to the rulers of the immediate followers. The Hyksos masses were scattered all over the country and permanently settled as Egyptians. They had become integrated into Egyptian society. So there you see it again, family. That every time they will fight to dethrone these people from a Pacific area in Egypt, Lower Egypt, they will still let these people live amongst us. You've seen this with the first unification of Menes and these same dang integrational policies. You see the same thing with Menhotep when he unified them during the Middle Kingdom. Oh, my battery about to die. You see the same thing, man. They still dethrone them and let them live amongst them. And now you see the same thing with Khotmos. Khotmos with Ahmose. They were not disturbed when their leaders were expelled. They were usually revival of domestic in industries, agriculture, and farm traders, along with expansions of imperial rules in Palestine and Syria to the Euphrates and Mesopotamia. This expansion of the empire, it promised a great wealth from the accompanying expansion of trade, meant renewals of war against the Black brothers holding the economically indispensable South. This time, the new and most powerful central government was able to extend the rules for the South than ever, that it is the fourth cataract almost to the holy city of Napata itself. Now you're starting to see these people starting to penetrate and damn near get further into Napata, the place where the brothers in the South definitely didn't want them to penetrate and get in those certain areas.
No, don't want them there.
Yeah, don't want them there because they see what what will happen, and what'll take place. And you're going to see as further we read that certain things when we get to the priest, how the priest became powerful, and then how these same agents use the power of the priest when they become the priest, and how they began to erase everything. And that was one of the brothers in the South, was they was feuding with the brothers in the North because they knew exactly what was going to happen. Them penetrating and taking over the land and began to erase and start to tell their own story. So they did not.
Go ahead and deal with the priesthood. Because I know it's coming up. I see it on page 110. I ain't got nothing till 113.
Okay.
But they talking about the priesthood. They start out.
Okay, well, the priesthood began to get powerful. Before I start reading, the priesthood began to get powerful during the Akhenaten reign. Akhenaten reign and so forth. This so-called singular deity or single Neteru, because when we talk about the Neterus, did I say it right? Sutek? But anyway, you're dealing with multiple deities. So when you get to him, you deal with one singular deity, right? So now the priests started to come up with something where they position themselves becoming the power, because during this same time of Akhenaten, you start to see that the priests started to fall out with Akhenaten over the whole system that he's trying to change, right? So the priests themselves had promoted the evolution.
Where you at?
I'm on page 110.
Okay.
Right at the bottom. It says the priesthood themselves had promoted the evolution of an ideal of the ruler role as chief priest and intermediary within the ancestral dead and the gods to the ideals of ruler kingship with the gods, thereby becoming deified himself. This was an ideal that the priest came up with each role of the king. He will be deified as well. And you see this all throughout Africa, especially when you're dealing with the elder, because even when you talk about eldership, you're talking about kingship, because they go hand in hand. And Brother Asar Imhotep talks about this when he talks about the word Nisabiti, or the word king, and how the word king relates to elder, how the word relates to chief, and the similarities and the roles are the same. So now you start to see the priest start, and them even being zonified as a deity or close to the Neterus. So they become deified. The sons and daughters of gods are finally gods himself. The custodians of the temples of the priests were promoting making their own position more powerful and secure by promoting divine kingship ideal. So they started to promote this ideal more. It meant that each king would try to outdo his predecessor in building more, bigger, and final temples and colossal burial structures. The pyramids for the royal saints and the sons and daughters of Amen, Haru, Sutek, etc. The priests were in the most strategic position to acquire great economics and political power for themselves quite naturally and without any particular effort to do so. They were the first men of learning. So the priests, now to take in this too, a lot of people may not know about this, and that's why I don't take a lot of people seriously when they say that they are priests. When they're dealing with Kemet, they are priests. So this is what the priests were: scribes, they were historians, they were scientists, they were architects, they was physicians, they was artists, they was mathematicians, they was astrologists, and especially chemists. Many temples, therefore, were colleges as well as a place of worship. The temples was also a place through which followed much of the national revenue. We will go on and indicate how and why the priest became political power in the Egyptian life, that even a great life of Akhenaten could not overcome this position. It was too late for him to escape from the now traditional status of being divine. One might say it may be the price of God has to pay for God maker. So you begin to, like I said, you begin to see the priest become more powerful. Go ahead.
Pluralize it. He says it has to pay for the God makers. So yeah, there's a go ahead. I was just trying.
No. Go ahead. Go into it.
okay, this goes back to what Satep was trying to tell us and the reason why he wanted you to get into the priesthood. Because many people misconstrue the whole notion of that and then how the structure of power changed. Now, remember, initially when you were talking about power, we were naming great kings.
Right.
We were running off a list of great kings, great builders, people who had huge influence, along the Nile and among the Remich. And now here we go. We're dealing with a priestly behavior because of a changing of the guard. This changing of the guard takes place, and now we're subjected to the powers of something outside of self. Whereas for thousands of years, the Nile flourished with the understanding of Bak, which is, work times 4. Well, is basically work, right? So your hands, your will, your goodness. So
you're talking about the spirit, right? The spirit, for people that may not know what you talk about when you mean work, what the spirit means. Okay, but I just want to throw that out there. But people may have missed what you're saying when you said bah, and then you mentioned basically work.
Yeah,
right.
Bah, and then of course Bak. So yeah, you're dealing with the spirit, and then you're dealing with your work. So you have a changing of the guard. You went from working hard to establish yourself among the greatest empires of the world to now dealing with trying to succumb to the greatest how I want to say this spirits of the world, right? So let me see. My listener says a voodoo priest said that that's how we became a conquered people, because we saw humanity in them, but they don't see humanity in us. True, that's a fact. But to back to you, to what you're saying, Kofi, and I'll let you continue to go because you're gonna go on some more. But yeah, I totally agree with your perspective on priests and why you don't take priests that way. You don't take priests serious because they are genuine in all of these learned behaviors. And the very first thing that he lists on here is scribes.
Right. But let's leave that alone because
family friendly show, man. Let's keep it moving, y'all. We don't want to be on.
Oh man,
I'm laughing. People may not know what I'm talking about, but if people read the book, they already know what we're talking about if they read volume 1 or follow some of the early discussions. But yeah, I mean that's all I had, man, with that, man, and I'm gonna digress and let somebody else, they got something else, man, in this book, because there's a lot of stuff, man, that we can take away and take away.
Separate route real quick because I know he's coming. So this is his favorite. This is his favorite time. So we're gonna go on down to paragraph 2, where it says in 1320 BC, the age of Ramesses began. This time, a line of great leaders was now followed by a line of weaklings. I'm gonna say that again. In 1320 BC, the age of the Ramesses began. This time, a line of great leaders was not followed by a line of weaklings. So he's saying the previous lineage of leaders were weak. He says this was the 19th dynasty, 1320 to 1200 BC, and while it did not equal the glorious 18th dynasty, the Ramesses kings stamped their periods as one of the most outstanding in a long history of the country. It was only near its end that the usual phenomenon of weakness and decline in the cycle began to set as a general social, economic, and political disorganization. The Ramesses rule continued through the 20th dynasty, 1200 to 1085 BC. The 21st, 22nd, and 23rd periods of 1085 to 730 BC again illustrated, as I have stated before, the fallacy of trying to chronicle African history in Egypt by dynasties. I have pointed out that at various times during the long struggles for power, we found several different dynasties ruling at the same time from their respective capitals in various parts of the country. Every period of weak kings at Memphis or Thebes was a general breakdown during which exactly the same happened over and over again. The Asian Lower Kemet became independent again, and from its capital of Avis and Sais pushed expansion of Asian power into Upper Kemet. By 1000 BC, the Asian population was so vast that there was new Asian dynasties were relatively easy to establish almost everywhere north of the First Cataract. During one of these periods, 70 kings and 70 days was reported.
Every day they had a different damn king, huh?
They getting slaughtered, man.
Yeah, this picture now was one of those confused scenes of black dynasties. Asian dynasties, Egyptian dynasties, which was the Afro-Asians, combination dynasties, those formed by alliances between two of the above groups, all the ruling simultaneously in Kemet was various capitals. Many historians were further misled by the fact that while some of these so-called dynasties claim to be the imperial government of all of Kemet, others made no such claim and confined themselves to their local chiefdom or the marquis. Significantly, many of the latter were headed by priests, which goes back to the argument laid out by Kofi earlier and the ancestor Chancellor Williams when he argues that priests began to, assume the power. So now we got these priests all over the continent. And you can get this dual rulership of all these people claiming sex. It's like, let's take the United States for instance, and you got basically a governor in all 50 states. You got a mayor in all 50 states, right? So you got a governor. So imagine that at a time along the Nile, 4,100 miles of the Nile on both sides. You got people on both sides of the Nile all claiming rulership. It's similar to a governor running a state.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. But that set you up all the way, Satep, unless Sutek got something.
Hey, what you got, Sutek?
Man, I ain't got nothing, man. Y'all killing.
All right, I'm gonna slide on over to 113. Show y'all how they playing both sides. All right, let's see. This is the first paragraph. The southern region therefore generally became independent as soon as Lower Egypt became independent. It began to threaten Upper Egypt, and at the same time the Asian threat was spreading. The southern Ethiopians were even more bitter because they had to fight the integrationalist blacks of Egypt just as hard as they fought the whites from the Lower Egypt in Libya. The South was no more prepared to accept all white rule. If anything, the trusted mixed breeds less because their inability to play either the white or black role as it suited their purpose. This may also be the reason so many blacks oppose large scale amalgamation. And that's what I had in quote right there, because when you're dealing with mulatto people, they got the right to play either side, in a situation that benefits them. And so the blacks, they did not like that. So they were opposed to that amalgamation for that reason in particular. Go ahead. Somebody got something?
Oh, no. But I mean, you hitting dead on, because I mean, you right here where you says the South Ethiopians were even more bitter because they had to fight the integrationist blacks of Egypt just as hard as they had to fight the whites from the Lower Egypt and Libya. Going back to what I was saying earlier, the brothers in the South, the brothers and sisters in the South wasn't trying to hear this integrationist, and they begin the same thing, like I'm saying, you seen during the 50s and the 60s with the separatists, the civil rights movement, and you see with Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, the Nation of Gods and Herbs, the Moors, all these people started to tap on the scenes, and a lot of these individuals, I ain't gonna say the Moors, but in particular, but the Black Panthers, and the Nation of Islam at that particular time, these was separatists, and they was fighting against the civil rights. You always had Malcolm at one time was saying bad things about Martin Luther King because he was a separatist. all these other different people was coming up, was talking bad or fighting against this people doing the civil rights movement. The same thing that you see right here. The people in Ethiopia, Nubia, or Ta-Nehisi, or Seti, they was fighting against their brothers, their kindred in the north, because of these international policies that was set place when Menes unified Egypt during a pre-dynastic period. So it caused, this international policy caused a rift between the brothers in the north and the brothers in the south, you know what I'm saying, because of this international policy, and it was bitter for them because now they got to fight against their brothers in the north because they understand what is happening throughout history. The same thing is happening, and we letting the same thing happen. We let them come in, they come in, take over a different place. We kick them out, we unify, and then we let them live amongst us until we fall weak, and then or they find a place where they can come in and attack. And they're moving up. They're coming from out of lower Egypt, and now they're coming into upper Egypt, and then they're gonna, now they're going into the first cataract, and they're gonna break through these different cataracts till they get to the south, they get to Napata. So they're trying to stop that all the way around of them, ruling these land and even erasing them out of history and telling their story, because their foundation, they believe, their foundation comes from Napata. So they definitely trying to stop them from coming into the south and then coming into Napata. So now they got to fight against their kinsmen over this integration between the whites in that area. But I mean, that's all I had, man. But go ahead.
Yeah, y'all want to swing on over to 114. This is another little powerful point I picked up on here. And that's all I got after this. So it says the significance of this should be obvious. The whites were systematically preempting the whole of Egypt, even adopting as their own Black institutions they could not easily destroy. And they doing that today with the hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying? They systematically adopting that shit and trying to they got the institutions already. All right, let me go back to this. And they were wise enough to gain control of African religion. So now, as the whites become priests and worship of the supreme God and the lesser gods of the blacks in Egypt, the success of erasing every vestige of early African civilization was moving forward toward the absolute. As the whites' priesthood became stronger and the widespread, they were not only able to secure control of Thebes, the most powerful stronghold of the blacks in Egypt, but the equal importance. They were then in a position to gain followers and a rebelling monarchs and persuade dissident chiefs to acknowledge the overlordship of Asian kingship of kings in various parts of the country. That's just crazy right there, man. Like that's
yeah, and where you see they becoming, we talk.
Finish the sentence. Finish the sentence.
Okay. Various parts of the country. In short, they took over Africa's gods and their own as a means of taking over Africa as their own. Like, that's just powerful, man. Like, and it's crazy because that shit happening today, man. It's happening right. This shit's happening right now, dog.
And that's why I say history, man, is so important. And just, the clarification again for people that may have just been watching. No, we started off in 4500 BCE, 6,000 some years ago. And man, some of the things that is going on, and I'll just say this, I'll just tell you what I got out of this. Out of chapter 3, the destruction of Black civilization, the great issue of race from 4500 to 2000 BCE by our great ancestor, Chancellor Williams, Majuba Ibe, Chancellor Williams. I got out of it, man, integration, which I already knew that. I mean, integration is a bad thing for us. I mean, it's not for us. I mean, I mean, and I think that's one of our kindness is one of our downfalls. We always, and I say this because I do it a lot too. I do it a lot too. And it's a gift and a curse, but our kindness, man, is our downfall. We always want to be the better person. We always want to help. You know, and it's nothing wrong with that, man. But our kindness, man, is definitely our downfall, man. And integration, we see with the Egyptians, the integration was the downfall of the degradation of the people. And then we see in the 50s and the 60s when Martin Luther King during the civil rights movement was fighting for us to integrate, to give up our greatness and what we had to integrate with the very people that despised, that didn't like us, you know, became our downfall too. And even, you know, even Brother Martin, you know, he realized that too. You know what I'm saying? That, you know, in an interview that he had, he said he believed that he is integrating his people into a burning house. He didn't know that at first, but after everything was passed and, you know, these integration laws and stuff like that, he knew, man, that he made a mistake. I don't know if he read Black Destruction, Destruction of Black Civilization. I don't know if he started studying certain things that happened in history, man, but we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again.
So we don't study.
Right, we don't study.
We're not studying the ultimate part of any of this information. We're dealing with right now. We're so individualized. For people that had once came together to pull together to make one of the greatest civilizations on earth, that was sprout out to be, you know, a remembrance for thousands of years, and the whole scientific community would build a scientific field of study around your greatness. It's baffling. And here we are, we sitting in the America, and we can't shun our achievements that we made here. You know, or even in West and South and Central Africa, we can't shun any of the greatnesses that we've made all over the world. But since we're talking about this particular chapter in this particular book, we can point to the fact that there were lessons to be learned. There's many lessons out of this chapter that we can specifically break down and get into, because it would then, you know, turn the tide to end this particular chapter. We deal with Pianki and Pianki's success that will later come back and say, hey, look, this belongs to us and we finna take it back. But we don't have that mentality today. We have failed to set ourselves up and be Pianki and reestablish our reign. You know, so now we have foreign rule. You know what I'm saying? We have 600 years of foreign rule along the Nile. We have uninterrupted, ladies and gentlemen, these Arabs have an uninterrupted rule along the Nile. They have say over everything that Africans built right now. When you go to Central Africa, we have no say. If we go further in East, we have no say. In South Africa, the apartheid opened up the doors for white rule over the natural resources in the greater land. When we go to West Africa, we are there in abundance along the Balad Al Sudan, but we don't have control of certain resources and capital in those areas in those countries where we can dominate and make an impact. Why? Because we haven't stood up to reclaim our greatness. We have fell short because we have refused to see who we are in history and deal with what we needed to deal with in order to do these things. And integration is a big problem with that. We see integration in West Africa. Why do we see integration in West Africa? There's not a whole lot of black and white people living amongst each other in West Africa. Not like that. Not along that Atlantic coast. What you talking about, Sean? Okay, the integration of ideology, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, identity theft is a huge problem. You have to reclaim who you are. You have to reclaim who you are in order to move your people forward. So, you know, this comes from leadership. So if you go to country, these leaders in these countries, you know, these political leaders in these countries got their hand in the cookie jar. And in order for us to even rewrite or move our people forward, we have to do what we have to as the Kofi Pi Psi research team. It spells 1, 2, or 3. We have to open that can of worms and put people on notice that, hey, look, we have agency over our own, and we need to reestablish that agency immediately in order to move our people forward. Like we said last 2 weeks ago, September Ra was big on this. He said, man, we need to be over in Africa like the Chinese. And we got to be gangster about it. In order for our rule to reign again once more, we have to go over there. We got to get our brain right. We got to get our training thought right, and we got to solve our own problems and stop looking to the Chinese, the European, the Japanese, the Korean, the Western mind to resolve African issues. And Africans in the diaspora need to come together and do those things correctly. And we have ways to do that. We just are not utilizing our resources to accommodate that. So hopefully the Kofi Pi Psi research team establishing a bridge, building the bridge with the help of Sister LaDosha writing the chat, that we can demonstrate. So demonstration be conversation. So in order for us to demonstrate, we got to show y'all that not only are we talking the talk, but we're walking the walk by building that bridge to Gambia and establishing some of the things that we can culturally to reacclimate ourselves, to open the doors for repatriation for other people, or just dual citizenship along that time. That's my piece.
Anybody else? I done said my piece, man. I guess we closing out, man.
Yeah. Sutek, you got anything?
Nah, man, that was a wonderful bill, man. You know, y'all know what I'm waiting on to get further on into this book.
Yeah, your specialty.
Yeah, but it was a good bill, man. I did learn. I learned a lot, and hopefully the people learned a lot and took out their notebooks and they're keeping up along with us. Hopefully they come back next week.
Yep.
Yeah, man. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Shout out Sister LaDosha. Shout out Mika. Let's see, Melissa. Who else up there? Shout out. I know I seen Brother Vince in here.
Esharent, whatever. I'm beautiful Houdier. I think I'm saying Esharent.
Behu
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything.
Brother Zane. So yeah, everybody watching on Facebook too.
Yeah.
A bunch of people on Facebook and people on the tube.
Yeah.
See the YouTube. But yeah, man, we want to thank everybody for watching, and yeah, y'all be ready for next.
We running, but we got another question. So is history telling us this generosity is our nature? Absolutely. It is telling us the generosity is our nature. We need to be more stern. Our generosity has levels, and it should stop. Like, for instance, if I continue to keep smacking you in the face, why do you keep on coming into my presence? Right? At what point do you develop a tolerance to tell yourself that you don't need to be around somebody? So those are things that we have to work on as a people to orchestrate. Like, who do we deal with? So you start with small teams and then you build from those small teams and to develop, but then you keep that circle small for when you're trying to network to do proper things to move your circle forward. And we have to develop a habit of what other people are already doing. Are the Chinese heavily invested in the true interest of African people? No, they're heavily invested in the resources and the interest of their own people. So we need to be stingy, right? We can be civil, and we can be stingy. What's wrong with us being civil with a person? Speaking to these people that, you know, we may need to communicate with them via trade or some type of business venture. But when can we be stingy and love ourselves and each other a little bit more? Like the Chinese go to Africa, they go to America, but they return home. They're heavily invested in building the natural resources and the wealth of the Chinese.
But they say we racist though. When we think like that, when black people think like that, if you say you pro-black, they say you racist because you when you saying pro-black, you saying you for your people, you for your home first. You for home first. You for your people first. You thinking about your people first. You thinking about the progress of your people first. Everybody else can think like that, but the black man and black woman can't think like that. When we think like that, I can't tell you how many times I tell people I'm pro-black. And the first thing, the immediate thing come out their mouth is, boy, you racist? And you racist? I'm racist because I'm thinking about myself and my people. But every other race thinks about their people first. They take care of their home first and everybody else second. Also, Sean, or anybody, man, what do y'all think that, okay, a lot of these things are psychological, like you know, she says, so is history telling us that generosity is our nature? So you made an example with someone slapping you in the face, how many times, you know, you get away from that person or whatever the case may be. So do we need some help? What is that called where you have a lot, the victim become the victimizer, and let's just say with men being abusive to women.
Stockholm syndrome.
The who?
Stockholm syndrome.
So Stockholm syndrome. We are suffering from Stockholm syndrome, and do you believe that we need some help? Because it's just like a battered woman. You know, you see a lot of cases where the woman is being beat, you know what I'm saying? And the woman is always making excuses for the person that beat us. That's why I always use the example with us as a whole. We hate the conditions that we in, but we love the people who put us in those conditions. We always make an excuse for the people that does things to us. Like I can be having a general conversation with somebody about things that happen in history, things that are happening right now in real time. You know, and people would continue to make excuses for the people that has us in these types of terrible positions that we are in, you know. So are we suffering Stockholm syndrome, and do we all need some type of therapy where we stop making excuses for those who, you know, who are abusing us?
Yeah,
I think we do. Brother Chancellor spoke on that too on page 101. That's something that I always been saying, man, because we might have had it before, but slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, and the whole process of slavery, I think that set it in even more. So I definitely think we need some type of therapy, some type of mental evaluation, all of us, because a lot of us still suffer from, like I said, post-traumatic slave syndrome in itself. What we still doing and having the same mentalities and philosophies of the plantation. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely think we need that.
Yeah, what the Sister Ladosha, what you mean? You said, I see you said, but ain't that integration? What's integration?
What the Chinese doing? Nah, the Chinese are coming into these areas not to integrate. The Chinese are coming in these areas to set their country up for success. So they're not coming they're not coming with the mindset of living among Africa. They're coming with the mindset of controlling African resources. Hence the reason that you see the Chinese in specific areas. They're spots. They're in East Africa in certain areas. They're in West Africa in certain areas. They ain't in Central and South Africa. They really don't have an interest there. So where you see them at where those gold mines are. Notice that they're heavily orchestrated or are entrenched in areas where gold mines are. And they are for extracting these resources and setting up these contracts to do business in these places and gain political citizenship in order for Africa to work with the Chinese. Yeah, but that's that on that. I know Separate Rob, man, I know you wanted to kind of end it. I mean, this is a good topic. We can continue to build on this discussion. Like I said, we'll go ahead and we can actually end this show. And you know, I might pop back up, man, and we can have a discussion piece. But I do want to say that, you know, we had a consistent flow of people tuned in to us, you know. So like if you're watching from Facebook and you have not, you know, liked or committed, you know, liked or shared our like page, please like our like page, subscribe to Kofi Pieside TV. So, you know, if you haven't gone to KofiPiesidetv.com, go to our website, support our books. They're in the learning market. Support our merchandise. They're in the learning market. So get ready for a new, you know, our new venture that's coming soon. Our Invoca brand, the clothing line, and so on and so forth. We're about to hit the streets with a bunch of stuff that we're working on. Go to our Instagram page. We have an Instagram page that will have information regarding everything that we have going on there as well. We got pictures up on our Invoca brand. Help us spread this information. Help us share this information. Help us expand this information to the hearts and minds of our people who have similar thoughts, just like you and I. And that's, you know, from the Kofi Pieside research team, we appreciate everybody. So thank you for tuning in, and you know, we're gonna chime out. And remember, same time, same bat channel next week. And Sister Ladosha, I'll answer that question from you at a different time.
All right, man. Sute, you got anything?
Nah, man. Yeah, okay. I ain't got nothing, man. Good show, man. Make sure y'all come back next week. And like my brother Sean said, man, like the like page, share the like page, subscribe to the channel, check out our merchandise, our books, our clothes. We got Invoca brand coming. He just said it. I gotta reiterate it though. You know what I'm saying? We gotta pound this into y'all head that we are making a brand. You know what I'm saying? The Kofi Pieside Research Team brand and the Invoca brand. So we making brands. So we got to brand this into y'all mind. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all check out everything we got going on, and we appreciate the love and support y'all gave us thus far. Continue to keep rocking with us, man. We appreciate it.
All right, we'll see y'all next Sunday. And Sean, like you said, he may do a little after show, a little after party show, and you know, answer some questions if y'all want to do that. But we'll see y'all next. We'll see y'all next Sunday. And the chapter that we're going to be reading is chapter 4, the first cataract, the Black World's New Borderline. So we will see y'all next Sunday. Peace.
Peace.